Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. We are presented and brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate you being here as we are going to react to the AP poll and everything that's going on in college football right now. And Zach and I definitely have issues with the AP poll. Once again, it's not the end all be all, but boy, is it really, really frustrating to watch Big Ten teams that should have a number next to their name that consistently do not have that number. We're going to get into it all. We're going to prop up some teams in the Big Ten and make sure you understand why they need to be ranked and other teams should not be ranked. Zach, are you as ticked off about the AP poll as I am?
I feel a little numb, if I'm being honest. I feel like this every week. I'll tell you what, though, I was impressed because one Josh Pate said he was going to go on the defense for a certain team in Iowa, and it is not the Cyclones.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, people are noticing. Big people are noticing. And the biggest of all is you and me. So,
well, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just get right into it. Everybody's already reacting in the chat, and for good reason, because they all know exactly what we're gonna talk about here. The AP poll came out. I'll read it off just to give you the info. Ohio State is number 1. This is the right one, right? No, this is last week.
This is last week.
I screwed up.
I was like, Illinois is not still ranked.
Yeah, my bad. Gosh.
And now I'm off the screen.
Now you're off the screen.
Yeah.
It's a great production here.
It's all right. All the podcast listeners, or all the people on audio podcast are like, what do you mean it's the wrong one? What do you mean? What's going on?
Yeah. I'll pull it up here and just bring it on the screen next to us. But basically, from my recollection, while I bring this up, the Iowa is not ranked, and that's really the basis of it all. You have every single 6-2 team or better, and the SEC is ranked, and only half of the 6-2 teams or better in the Big Ten are ranked, and it's really, really frustrating. Zach, take over for me while I bring this up.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, Iowa's not ranked. Washington's not ranked. USC is below Michigan, which I still don't understand. Like, I've not heard a good explanation for USC being below Michigan in the poll. So yeah, it's just an odd thing. And then yeah, okay, you've got it up. Like, you have a smattering of Big 12 teams in there. There's 5 Big 12 teams in there where I'm like, okay, but are they really good? Like, are we sure that Iowa wouldn't beat Houston? We know that Nebraska would beat Cincinnati because they did. Like, that's the thing that's bothers me.
The thing that's frustrating is you have teams in there that are in there because of their record, right? You have teams like Virginia and Houston in there that are in there because of their record. When in reality, I can tell you for a fact that Iowa would beat Virginia. I can tell you for a fact that Iowa would beat Houston. Like, this is the most infuriating part about AP poll rankings. It's like, I get it. They have to be up there because they're either undefeated or they have one loss. But it doesn't mean that they should be ranked above another team when you... I mean, I guess I'm dealing in hypotheticals here, like SEC fans a little bit, but I feel very confident that Iowa would be able to take down Virginia or Houston.
I feel like I didn't know if we wanted to take it down the graphic, by the way, the score bug.
Oh yeah, thanks.
But I think it's just, do people watch football? And I appreciate.
Well, no, we talked about this with Doug, right?
Yeah,
like they don't watch the games.
Yeah, so I appreciate, which gives me a lot of sympathy for a lot of AP voters. So we shouldn't. I think the thing I learned from Doug, which, by the way, if you did not watch that episode, go back and watch it or listen to it. It was awesome. Maybe I'm a Doug fanboy, but I appreciated his reminder to us that, like, often the people that are voting are beat writers and their main job is to cover the team. So, like, of course they're not watching these teams. So I think I'm less upset and more just like, the problem is they're just taking a list and they're re-voting every week. And so I'm not surprised because it's like, oh, Michigan won. Cool. I'll move them up a couple spots. Oh, this team lost. I'll bump them out or bump them down. Like that's just what they're doing. And they're not actually taking things into account. They're not really thinking about a strategy. They're just thinking it's 3 a.m. and I'm exhausted. I got to fill one of these things out.
Yeah, let me double check this article written by this person, on what the AP poll should look like, and so I'm gonna go to that. And we've had AP poll voters come out and say like, "Oh yeah, I missed that." Like, to me, if that type of stuff happens, then the voter should not be removed completely, but their poll for that week like should be gone. Like,
Mhm.
if you do not decrease Florida after they lose to USF, your poll should be gone that week. It's just wrong, right? Like, you can't move up Florida after losing to USF, but
Mhm.
it is what it is. So I still do not understand for the life of me how Tennessee and Missouri are ranked. Neither of them have like, and I hate to kind of play this good wins card because you know the SEC fans love to play it, but the difference is they love to play it with like, well, they don't have a ranked win, and it's like, well, of course they don't have a ranked win. You know, over half of their conference is not ranked. You know, Tennessee, they have beaten Kentucky, Arkansas, at Mississippi State, UAB, an FCS team where Cade McNamara is the starting quarterback. I don't know if anybody knew that, and then Syracuse. Like, how is that top 15 worthy? If you want to say,
Yep.
oh well, they almost beat Georgia. Okay,
Quality loss.
yeah,
Yeah.
but apparently Illinois, like losing to Ohio State and Indiana, which I get it. Like, I get that they lost by a bunch of points, but then at the same time, we don't hold Texas A&M accountable for playing close games against Arkansas and going to
Yep.
overtime against Mississippi State. Like,
Yep.
we're seeing a whole bunch of people now talking about, well, is Texas A&M supposed to be number one? And Texas A&M has gotten number one votes. It's just it's baffling to me. They beat a crappy LSU team that should have never been ranked.
Yep. They just fired
And
their coach.
yeah, they knew they weren't good. They beat Clemson early on, and
Yeah.
Clemson sucks.
Yep. I I don't know if I have like any other thoughts. I just think it's really, to me, this ranking doesn't matter anymore. And
Well,
I
but that's
think
like
part
that's
of
the
the,
hard part. Like, it does matter though. Like,
well, yeah, I like
that
it, Matt.
that was one area where I disagreed with Doug a little bit, where he was like, it doesn't really matter. What matters is perception. Well, what fuels perception though? These rankings
Yeah, but
a
I
lot of the
think,
time.
yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think though, I think a lot of people, like, I think in some ways we almost have to just let things play out, because I think the teams that will get in the playoff will get in, and if things keep trending the way that they're trending, I don't know how you don't end up having Ohio State, Indiana being the top teams, because the SEC, like, Texas A&M, I've been a little impressed by. Aside from them, like, Bama has had good moments, but like they've had some pretty bad moments. Georgia is mid to the core. Vandy is mid. Like, they're pumping up Diego Pavia for scoring 17 points on a mid Missouri team.
Did you see that ESPN posted that touchdown where there were two flags on Vanderbilt?
No, I
Imagine if
didn't.
this didn't get called back. Imagine what would have happened if there wasn't constant holding on that play where he had to throw two flags. He wouldn't have made the play. It's just
Mm. Love
it's
it,
just
love it,
crazy.
love it. Yeah.
Somebody also brought up Missouri. Sorry, I didn't catch your comment quick enough. And that was exactly where I was going to go next. Like, Missouri has beat Central Arkansas FCS team, Kansas, Louisiana, South Carolina, UMass at
Yeah.
Auburn.
Yeah.
How are you
Not
a
a good
top
schedule.
20 team when those are your wins?
Yep. Well, but I think, to be fair, and I have Iowa ranked in my poll. Iowa is ranked less on their resume and more on their game control, right? Because their best win is Minnesota, a 5-3 Minnesota team that lost on the road at Cal. Which I'm not saying is bad. Like that doesn't mean they shouldn't be ranked. I think you have to dig a bit deeper to understand some of what the Big Ten teams have done. Same thing with Washington. Like you're going to say, well, they don't have any ranked wins. They beat Illinois, but now they're not ranked. But I think it's the combination of their offense, right? Their offense is good. Their defense is improving. Their only losses are to Ohio State and to Michigan. But people aren't considering the level of their victories and how they've looked. They're just looking at resume and they say, well, that's again, perception. That's not as good as Tennessee. That's not as good as Missouri, it's not fair. Mm-hmm. But the resumes are not all that different. And so I think what really killed the Big Ten in perception, Doug mentioned it, USC not beating Notre Dame, that killed perception. I think,
but it's also on the road at cross country.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but
no, I know you're not. I'm
perception.
saying nobody has that type of context. An SEC team loses on the road, and it's like, oh well, it's really tough to play on the road. In the SEC, Alabama nearly loses South Carolina. They get a I said lucky earlier. That was probably the wrong word for it. They did strip the ball out, but
it was a little lucky. It was a little lucky.
And everybody says, oh, they advanced, playing on the road against South Carolina, and it's like South Carolina sucks, man. We're gonna give them credit for that, but Indiana
good.
beats UCLA, and Stuart Mandel is out here talking about how much UCLA sucks.
The thing, and this is where I'll push back a little bit. If Minnesota beats Cal, that would have really helped, but they didn't. And that was a totally winnable game. And Minnesota didn't. And Iowa losing to Iowa State, Iowa State's not terrible. They've kind of have not been great. But I realize I'm taking a different tack than I typically do because I agree with you. I agree with you that it's stupid, but also at some point we have to look at the mirror and say, hey, mid-tier Big Ten programs, don't lose your out-of-conference games because this is what happens. You've got to win those games, and they didn't. And because of it, a whole conference suffers because you have people questioning Ohio State because stupidly, people are questioning Indiana stupidly. And people are questioning Oregon stupidly. People are not ranking Washington. But the reality is other Big Ten teams didn't do their part. And that's unfortunately skewed the perception a little bit. And because the SEC doesn't play many teams out of conference, they
do. They just play them all at home or on a neutral site.
Yeah.
Like Tennessee played Syracuse at home.
Wow,
right?
Syracuse sucks. That's my point though. They don't play good out of conference games except for a couple. And when they do, they get beat. But they are sneaky good at scheduling bad out of conference, like Alabama scheduling Wisconsin. It's like, well, that's a good out of conference win. No, it's not. Wisconsin stinks. But it's propped up as SEC 1, Big Ten 0. It alters perception.
And I didn't tweet this, but I was going to, and I don't remember why I didn't. I think I accidentally deleted it, and I didn't. You know what the ESPN FPI average rank of all the SEC out of conference wins are?
No, what is it?
If you take out Michigan, it's above 60.
Mm-hmm.
With Michigan, it's still above 50 in ESPN FPI. You have Virginia Tech, Syracuse, teams in there that beat up on crappy ACC teams, which granted, Minnesota didn't beat a crappy ACC team. I say crappy; they're 5-3. It's not like they're 3-5 or something like South Carolina. Yeah. But still, they had to go on the road to go play that game. And overall, I mean, I am with what Indiana did. not playing the out of conference games before. I didn't like it because I want to see bigger games, but
Yeah.
I could understand it and get with it. I want everybody to play them now, but at the same time, like,
Yeah.
are you going to play them on the road or at home? I don't know. That's probably a conversation for a
Well,
different day.
so there is something to bring up there though, because, and I've seen a lot of people talking about it, like Ohio State, Texas was game one, and everybody is taking that to make a point that isn't there. And this, and I will say the same is true. And I'm not a Bama defender, but the same is true for Bama at Florida State, where those data points are relevant. But a real question you have to ask with both of those results is, where have those teams gone since then? And I think for Texas and Ohio State, people are trying to almost make the argument, well, Ohio State hasn't played anybody. And because they only beat by Texas by a touchdown, they're really not that good. That is taking it way out of context, because you're saying that Ohio State hasn't improved since week one, which, if you are watching any bit of Ohio State football, is not true. Whereas Texas has not improved.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have been not very good. I'll go to Florida State, Alabama. Florida State has tanked. Alabama has gotten better, but I don't think they've gotten that much better, but they have gotten better. And so I think anybody who takes both of those results and tries to extrapolate more from those as the beginning game of the season and not realize that teams don't improve. Iowa is the same case, right? Iowa is much better now than when they played Iowa State. The problem, so you have multiple problems with the poll and how people are perceiving things. But I'll go back to what I was saying before. How teams are how voters are going to misperceive things. So, like, you're going to do yourself a solid if you just beat the team.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. If we get back to the AP poll, because we've kind of gone off track here
Yeah,
for
sorry.
a minute, but I agree with what you're saying, I'm just trying to find a creative way to get back to the AP poll, and I can't, so I'm just going to come right out and say it.
Go for it.
No, it is partially the AP poll, but it is also just partially like the perception and everything like that. Another team in there, I cannot imagine anybody would actually pick Memphis to beat Iowa. I cannot imagine anybody would actually pick Memphis to beat Washington.
But JR, they beat Arkansas.
I mean, okay, Arkansas sucks.
Sarcasm.
Yeah.
Sarcasm.
Yeah. But like, people look at Iowa and Washington and be like, oh, they suck. They have 2 losses in the Big Ten. Every other SEC team that has 2 losses or less is ranked, but the minute a Big Ten team gets 2 losses, it's like, we don't know. I mean, I could make a case that Illinois should still be ranked, even with 3 losses.
Yeah.
Now, not high. I'd have them like 24, 25. In fact, I think I have them 24 on my rankings. But if you're gonna keep Notre Dame up there at 12,
yeah,
what's Notre Dame's big win? USC.
Yep.
At home.
Yep.
What's Illinois' big win? USC. At home. I'm not saying they should be ranked 13th. Still 24, 25.
Yeah.
But I also have Iowa and them in there.